Hey guys, today's story is called Caterpillar and is by Vivian French and it's illustrated by Charlotte Vokey. And it is about a little girl who finds caterpillars. My father and grandfather both liked gardening very much, but my grandfather used to grow stinging nettles. My father didn't. He said they were weeds and rooted them out. Why don't you get rid of your nettles? I asked my grandfather. Stinging nettles grow butterflies. Go and look. I went and looked. I didn't see any butterflies, though. My grandfather turned one of the nettle leaves over to show me the bumps on the back of it, but I didn't know what they were. Butterfly eggs, said my grandfather. What kind of butterflies? My grandfather peered closely at the bumps. I don't have my glasses on, but they could be tortoise shells or peacocks. They both like nettles. If you keep an eye on them, you'll see when the caterpillars hatch. Won't they crawl away? I asked. My grandfather straightened up and looked down at me. He said, you just keep watching. So I did. Nothing happened at all for 2 days. It rained very hard on the second day, but the eggs were still safe. The next day, there were lots and lots of tiny little caterpillars crawling on the nettle leaves. The eggs were papery and empty. I squished some with my fingernail. My grandfather came over to see what I was doing. Ah, peacock caterpillars, he said. Do they eat cabbage? I'd seen caterpillars on cabbages. So see all the little squiggly lines? That's all the caterpillars. He shook his head. Caterpillars are fussy eaters. If you put a nettle-eating caterpillar on a cabbage, it'll set off to look for nettles. And if it can't find any, it'll sit down and die than rather eat the cabbage. I looked at my peacock caterpillars. They were all together in a little crowd, eating as fast as they could. Won't the birds eat them up? I asked. Couldn't we cover them up? No need, said my grandfather. Caterpillars that don't hide away are really saying, I'm poisonous, stay away. And all the birds know that. He pulled his pipe out of his pocket and very gently nudged one of the caterpillars. It curled itself up at once and fell off the leaf. There. Even if something does come along looking for a snack, a caterpillar might still escape. Can I make one curl up? I stuck my finger out. Don't touch them, my grandfather said. Some spiny caterpillars can give you a rash, and other kinds leave a bad smell on your fingers. Besides, you might hurt them. I went on watching the caterpillars. They were getting bigger. By the second Saturday in July, they had eaten almost every plant they'd hatched on and were crawling all over the other nettles. Some of them were lying completely still, though, and not eating at all. All of a sudden, one of them gave a little wiggle and its skin split right open. Inside was another brand new caterpillar, and it crawled out of the old skin as if it was crawling out of a sleeping bag. It looked fresh and clean and seemed to be bigger than before. All the other caterpillars were changing skins too. I knew something must be eating my caterpillars because there weren't so many of them now. I didn't mind, but I did mind 5 days later when I found every single one of them disappeared. Where have they gone? I asked. I was close to tears. Pea sticks, said my grandfather. We marched around the corner of the shed to where the pea sticks were. Sometimes one or two come here, said my grandfather. Oh, yes, here we are. Sure enough, there was one of the caterpillars hanging heads down off of a pea stick. And to my amazement, before my very eyes, its skin began to peel off from head upwards, and it shriveled away. This time, there wasn't another caterpillar ready to come up. Inside, there was something soft and brown like a bag hanging on the pea stick. It didn't have legs or eyes or anything, and it was dried up in a little case. My grandfather said that's just what it was, but the proper name for it was a pupa or a chrysalis. But where's the caterpillar gone? I said. All the little bits of caterpillar were inside the case, he said, and they were changing. Oh, there's another chrysalis. Just this once, I was allowed to bring the stick with the little case into the kitchen. I watched for 10 whole days, and then on the 10th day, the pupa got very, very dark. The next morning, I was eating my breakfast when my grandfather suddenly said, "Look!" I rushed to see, and the case of the pupa had split. Something was crawling out, but it didn't look like a butterfly. It was crumpled and looked damp, and there weren't pretty colors at all. Something must have gone wrong, I said, feeling very sad. Look, there it is. Very gently, my grandfather came and lifted the stick and put it in the windowsill with some sunshine. The creature crawled up slowly and stopped. Little by little, it began to stretch out. It looked like watching a flower unfold itself, only it had wings instead of petals. Look, there it is. And the wings began to tremble and the shine in the sunlight, and then suddenly there it was, a real butterfly with spidery legs and wings spread wide open. It was so lovely I couldn't say anything at all, and then its wings fluttered and it flew off into the garden, the very newest butterfly there. Look, there it is. Oh, there's a whole bunch more butterflies. The end.